Hey, what is up everybody? Gannon here, back with some more One Piece content for y'all. Today, I wanted to talk about something that I think everyone who reads and watches One Piece has thought about at one point or another, and that's basically visualizing what Luffy's Rubber Fruit Awakening would actually look like, and how it would function. Since we very first heard of Devil Fruit Awakenings in One Piece, we've been kind of questioning the vague definitions for what it actually is. The thing, however, is that the definition provided to us has been from paramecia type users who produce a substance, for example Doflamingo and Katakuri, who produce strings and mochi from their fruits, as well as Douglas Bullet's non-canon awakening in Stampede. However, it is important to note that Bullet's awakening simply allowed him to restructure objects and materials from a much greater range, rather than his Devil Fruit simply starting to affect things other than the user, because in definition, Bullet's Gashi Gashi no Mi already does that. And there are also Logia users who produce a substance and can lead to affecting entire islands in giant landscapes with their individual elements. Doflamingo's definition has kind of been plaguing us ever since it left his brilliant gaping maw. When a Devil Fruit is awakened, it will start to affect not only the user, but its surroundings as well. However, we know this cannot be true with all Devil Fruits, as there are obviously a bunch of fruits that can't be held to these standards, like Kinemon's clothes producing fruit, or Tama's dumpling fruit, or even Big Mom's soul fruit, among many others. And then, not to mention, it's also stipulated that Zone Fruit users have a version of awakening that turns them into mindless, powerful, and very durable beast creatures, like the zones seen at Impel Down and most probably Chopper's Monster Point. I actually made a little theory video with some explanations for how individual Devil Fruit types are awakened. It was one of the first videos on my channel, and while some of the aspects of the theory may be a little bit of a stretch, I still think the video holds up today. So if you want to go check that out and see an incredibly outdated video from me, I'll link it here right now. With all that being said, what's Luffy's awakening going to look like? How much more powerful will it make him? And when is it going to be an ample time for Luffy to utilize his awakened Devil Fruit powers in the One Piece story? I'm going to attempt to answer all these questions and more to the best of my ability, so let's just get right into it. First of all, I just like to make a little confession that the title of this video is definitely a little clickbaity, as I'm not totally convinced Luffy's Gear 5th ability will be his awakening. And I'm also not convinced that Luffy's Devil Fruit Awakening will even be referred to by Luffy as one of his gears. This is because all of Luffy's gears have him manipulate aspects of his body, thus augmenting Luffy and his fighting ability. Gear 2nd is Luffy pumping blood and nutrients to specific parts of his body using his rubber ability to gain speed and strength. Gear 3rd is him blowing large amounts of air into his stretchy body in order to gain mass and power in his kicks and punches. And Gear 4th is Luffy blowing haki and air into his muscular structure to change basically everything about Luffy, his appearance, his fighting ability and strength, and even gives him the ability of flight with his elasticity. The reason I don't immediately off-rip think of Luffy's awakening to be his 5th gear is that an awakening is pretty cut and dry. You kind of just activate it and it makes your Devil Fruit ability stronger in some fashion. It won't necessarily be a body augment or anything that resembles his previously shown gear types. As to when Luffy will awaken this ability, there are 3 obvious places in the timeline of the story which I think it's most probable to happen. The least probable, in my opinion, would be in the current Big Mom / Kaido fight that we're currently seeing as a part of the Wano Kuni arc. I think this because Luffy's just shown us a new ability in the form of Red Rock, which is a large Gear 3rd Red Hawk that utilizes his newly learned advanced Haki type that in the last chapter seemed to stir up and surprised the hell out of Kaido. Now that Luffy is able to implement highly advanced destructive Haki into his kit, I think that there's so much potential to be seen from that, and that it's probably unlikely Oda will use Luffy's awakening as a wild card in this fight. Luffy can still utilize this new Haki type in a bunch of different ways, whereas we've already seen him combine it with Gear 3rd. I'm looking forward to seeing some classic Gear 2nd attacks with it, but most importantly, this could open up a whole realm of new possibilities with Gear 4th. What I'm trying to get at here is that I'm more on the boat that Luffy will use his newly found Haki in conjunction with Gear 4th to provide us a new form of Gear 4th, or even maybe just a completely new form that's going to be Gear 5th. Perhaps the long theorized Sun Wukong type form. I think it's a lot more likely Oda will utilize Luffy's awakening in one of 2 climactic points in the remainder of the story, which I believe either to be when Luffy finds the One Piece, or when the Straw Hats have to participate in the eluded War of All Wars, where they're actually going to have to go and revolt against the world government. I just don't think Oda is going to pull the awakening card in Wano Wano because there's still so much to be seen with what Luffy can do with his new advanced haki. Lastly, the thing you've all been waiting for, what do I think Luffy's awakening will be? And what will it look like? And also, how powerful will it be? Basically, right now in the story, it's safe to assume that Luffy can compete with Yonko level characters in some fashion based off what we've seen in the last chapter, and that he's going to become an Admiral level character with the implementation of his new advanced haki into his kit. In contrast to this, just to tell you how strong I think his awakening to be, I think that it will be the ability that truly makes Luffy a Pirate King level character. Like, it's going to be so juicer that it truly sets him above many of the top tiers in the verse. Similar to how Naruto got at the end of Shippuden, but way less corny and way less over-exaggerated. Okay, now for the bread and butter, what is the ability going to look like? I'm just gonna get right into it and say that I am a huge proponent of the bounce house theory. Now, what is the bounce house theory, you ask? Well, since Luffy's fruit does not create a substance like Doflamingo's and Katakuri's paramecia fruits, he can't really create rubber or make it come out of his body or anything like that. His fruit simply changes the properties of his body to make him rubber-like with all the properties of rubber. I believe Luffy will do the same thing with his surroundings in his awakened form. Luffy will be able to activate his awakening and be able to give the general area around him the properties of rubber. And while that might not seem like the most overpowered ability, let me just get into some explanation. Luffy is the notorious user of the rubber fruit. I doubt anyone else in the entire One Piece timeline has used this mundane fruit in as cool a way or as inventive as Luffy. So we can really just assume at this point that Luffy is a rubber expert. Imagine how much mobility Luffy would have if he were able to turn the entire area around him into rubber. He could utilize his Gear 2nd and Gear 4th techniques to traverse the terrain with ease while his opponents struggle to traverse and fight Luffy in what literally could be compared to a bounce house. And imagine if Luffy was fighting in an enclosed space with this ability. He could knock his opponent around in this enclosed space like a pinball as he expertly bounces around and becomes one with the rubber. You could even take this a step further by maybe saying Luffy will be able to put haki into this new rubber environment like Dolphy does with his strings and Katakuri with his mochi. So imagine Luffy blitzing you and knocking you around this bounce house at absolutely incredible speeds, and then he coats a surface of rubber in haki that's really powerful, so it feels like you're hitting a metal wall at full force with all the inertia you've built up from bouncing around. And let's even take this a step further, and Luffy kind of just becomes an absolute god, and he can control the rubbery environment to some degree. Well, that's just like being in somebody else's Minecraft server when they have fucking admin status. Like, think about how strong Luffy is in the current story and all the strength and power he has and all superhuman feats, but have that jumping around in a rubber room like a gazelle, punching the ever-living shit out of you. But if he can control the rubber to some degree, what's stopping Luffy from making blunt objects like the mochi mounds Katakuri created, or even fists shaped like rubber objects that he can manipulate and rock the shit out of his enemies? He could theoretically actually create a bunch of offensive techniques to totally overpower and decimate anything caught inside his bounce house. Now, while I'll say that the rubber control factor is definitely a bit of a stretch, it's totally, absolutely fun to fantasize about, so I'm definitely gonna mention it. Luffy could create like multiple King Kong guns or something and just delete somebody while they're struggling to fight in this fucking bounce house. It would be so absolutely fucking cool. Anyways, guys, that's basically what I'd like to think Luffy's awakening will be like. I think it would be rather fitting for his character, whereas on the surface, it could be seen as a silly ability, but in actuality, it's super fucking strong, which is a pattern we've seen from Luffy's previous gears. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you think Luffy's awakening will be like? What theory do you personally subscribe to? And when do you think we get expecting it to be happening in the One Piece story? Leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to get back to you. Anyways, guys, if you enjoy the video, I'd be very flattered and chiefed if you were to subscribe. And if you like this video, please slap a like on it. And I'm going to have to see you guys in the next one.